Hey everybody, Cody Crawford here with Sound Planning Group, back to talk about Social Security and specifically the case for taking Social Security benefits early, even if you don't have to, or if you can, afford to delay them for longer than most people. Now, there's a caveat to this. There's a couple of reasons why you wouldn't want to delay Social Security, very distinct reasons, right? And the first and clearest one is your health just doesn't permit it. If you have chronic conditions, some sort of disease, you know that you're probably not making it out of your 70s, then it's probably necessary for you to take Social Security. Now, that being said, I've got some people that tell me, well, Cody, my dad died at, 74, 78. My mom died at 81. I just don't think I'm ever going to live that long. And these are people that might, work out, might eat healthy, have no viable reason to think that they're not going to live a longer life. And when I asked them, well, did your dad go to the gym? It's like, no, he couldn't even spell exercise. Okay, he ate bacon every day and smoked cigarettes. Yeah. So let's be realistic about that, right? I know you want to get your benefits and I know you want to get them as quick as possible, but it's important that we make sound planning decisions. Number two, it would be if you just have to. Maybe you're destitute. Maybe you don't have the resources. Because ultimately, guys, we all have to put food on the table, put a roof over our head, pay our liabilities, take care of the people that we need to take care of. And so if that's you, then you shouldn't feel any shame about having to take your Social Security benefits early. But what we're going to talk about more today is how I start to help my clients understand how to quantify the decision of taking Social Security, okay? And the first thing that we really talk about, and the first thing I like to say is, well, guys, if you tell me when you're going to die, I'll tell you exactly when to take Social Security, but nobody can answer that question. And the reality is if we take Social Security at 62 and we pass away at 100, well, we left a lot of money on the table, right? But if we took Social Security at 70 and passed away at 73, we left a lot of money on the table. Nobody actually knows. And so when we're, starting to determine when to take Social Security, let's at least go through the right process and checklist to realize, hey, we're making the decision we're making because it's good for my plan, not just because somebody on CNBC or your neighbor or the janitor at the church told you this is why you need to take Social Security. So one of the things we talk about a lot is the 3 phases of retirement. And it's what I like to call the utilitarian value of money. And this is really the first reason why we would want to take Social Security a little bit earlier. Think about it like this. If you are, 90 years old and I hand you a check for $1 million, how far do you think that check's going? Probably pretty far into your bank. And then you're going to go back and flip channels and go to the garden or read your books. You're not really going to Machu Picchu when you're 90 and taking hikes and using that money in the same way that if I wrote you a check and gave it to you at 65 or 66, you'd be doing. Right? If you got it at 65, or what we call the go-go years, when you're active, when you can go to Italy and hit the Vatican in July, when you can do all the things that you said you wanted to do in your life, right? That $1 million goes so much farther and you can actually use it impactfully for a long period of time, right? So that's what we call the go-go years. The slow-go years is kind of like your 75 to 85, where you could probably do some of those same things. You just don't have the energy to do them anymore. And then the no-go years are when, as Tom Hegna says, you're not leaving the building until you're leaving the building. How many of you know somebody that's in their mid or late 80s, assuming they're not paying for like long-term care or, assisted living facility, they're probably not spending a lot of money. They're probably, taking $3,000 a month and saving 80% of it, right? So they're not really doing those things. So the way that I look at Social Security as I'm helping my clients is that, yes, we would have higher monthly benefits if we continue to delay, but how impactful are those dollars going to be in your actual plan? Okay, guys, let's keep it simple. We're going to look at my Social Security timing report. Again, we dig deep into these Social Security reports on another video, but I just want you guys to understand, again, the utilitarian value of money when it comes to taking Social Security. So you'll see for this, now this software doesn't know anything about Ken and Laura's goals or about their other income sources or about where they work. All it knows is that I plugged in from their benefit statements what they'd get at their full retirement age. And I have their mortality ages for Ken at 85. God did it right. Women tend to live longer, right? And his wife, I have her mortality age at age 90. So you'll see The suggested strategy, which just for this means what's the most amount of dollars they'll get if they live as long as we plugged in, which again is 85 and 90. At age 70, it said Ken can collect $5,300 a month. That's pretty significant. For Laura, she's going to take it 67. She won't be able to get any spousal benefit at this time because her husband will not have filed. Remember, they have a slight age difference of 3 years, but her benefit's going to be $1,215 a month. And 3 or so years, then when she's 70 and 9 months, she'll get an additional $800. So basically, she's going to get about $2,000 a month by the time she's 70 years and 9 months. What I want you to see here, though, is that the total lifetime benefit, if they did this strategy and assuming they passed away at 85 and 90, would be $1,349,455. That's a lot of money, right? If you look at the amount of taxes that you paid into it, it's a lot more. This benefits a lot more than the taxes you paid. Say, Cody, we really don't want to wait till 70. Forget the fact that we don't even know if it's going to be there, which it is. Social Security is going to be fixed and they're going to, figure things out. But, that's one of the things that they said. They also said, we want to be able to use it now while we're still healthy and while we have the time and, why we're going to go do all these things that we want to do. And so we came up with an alternate strategy that said, okay, Ken's going to actually file at 66 and 4 months. He's not going to get $5,300 a month. He's going to get $3,700 a month. Laura is going to file for her benefits at 65. Again, no spousal benefit available just yet, but she will get $1,000 of her own benefit. And then in a few years or a couple years, she'll be able to get the additional $730 of a spousal benefit. But ultimately, again, what I want you to see here is even though the monthly income is less, the total is $1,286,235. Okay, so that's a difference of about $65,000 when you compare it to them waiting till 70 and 67. This is what I mean by the utilitarian value. Is 65 grand more long-term? Yeah, but you have to live 20, 25 years for that decision to make sense. In addition, if they do take it 70 and 67, where's that money going to come from? Well, they have to take it from the portfolio. So what we're going to do next is look at the second most powerful reason why you would want to delay, which is putting less stress on the portfolio. So let's do that right now. All right, so let's talk about not delaying Social Security so that we can protect ourselves from bear markets or so that we don't have to lean so much on our portfolio withdrawals. We just talked about the utilitarian value of taking Social Security early, being in the go-go years, right? And you can enjoy all of that money. But the second part is we don't know when you're going to retire, what the markets are going to do, right? We call this sequence of returns risk. And, Prudential talked about the retirement red zone where it's like the 5 years before and the 5 years after retirement or when your portfolio are the most susceptible to stock market returns because you can be devastated. Like we don't want to lose in the fourth quarter, right? We want to make sure that in that period of time, think about someone who retired in 2007. The market was down 50% in 2008. They had to pull money from their portfolio to live their life. Most people took a 40 to 50% hit in a 1 year period. Now, they didn't necessarily run out of money, but psychologically, again, we talk about having peace. They're sitting on the kitchen table, etching out how much money they have left. And I promise you what they did have to do is significantly reduce their lifestyle. And the money that you save is about the memory dividends. It's about the things that we can do with money. And when you have less of it, you do less of those things that you wanted to do. All right, so what I'm going to do next is we're going to go to the screen and we're going to look at retiring in these deep bear markets or, making sure that we have our Social Security income kicking out so that we can help mitigate our sequence of returns risk. What I want you to do is look at this chart. This is probably one of the best explanations, again, of retiring in a bear market or the impact that sequence of returns risk can have on your retirement. So if you'll look here on the left side, this is someone that retired with $500,000, withdrawing about 5% of their portfolio, but started their retirement in 1973. And the second, it's someone that started their retirement in 1993, right? And again, I mentioned a second ago that the time that you retire, like this sequence of returns that you get when you retire, is the most critical and it's the most uncontrollable. We cannot control what the market's going to do as we retire, right? So we talk about, do we want to bridge with our own dollars from our portfolio for 4, 5, 6 years before we take Social Security? If the market's doing really well, that might be a lot easier. If the market is getting hammered and if it's staying down, it's going to be a very frightening, terrifying thing to do, and it might just cause you to run out of money, which we have to avoid at all costs, right? So let's look at the screen again. You'll see that someone in that time period from 1973, when Nixon took us off the gold exchange, then you had high inflation, you had the oil wars, you had people lining up at the gas stations, all this crazy stuff happened. In the early 80s, Paul Volcker comes in, jacks interest rates up to 17, 18, 19% to break that inflation. Reagan gets elected. He starts doing his Reaganomics. But then in 1987, do you remember what happened? The stock market dropped 27% in one day, the largest percent drop we've ever seen. Now, it did come back, but the problem for the retiree who was pulling money out of their portfolio at that time is mathematically, if we lose 27%, we have to make 40% to get even. If we lose 50%, we have to get 100% to break even. It's twice as hard to climb uphill, which is why that retiree ultimately ran out of money. On the other side, if you remember what happened in 93, from 93 to 2000 is right after, Clinton gets elected. There was a recession right before that, but you basically had a run up until 2000, right? Of course, we had the tech wreck, 9/11, etc. But because the first 10 years of this retiree's life, the market was crushing versus the first 10 years of this retiree's life where the market just went straight down and his $500,000 went to 380, mathematically, it's a very different story for each of them. So the point of this is maybe for a lot of people, it does make sense to not delay Social Security until age 70 or 69 or 68, right? Because what if they're stopping work at 63? They're going to have to bridge portfolio withdrawals for 4, 5, 6 years. With this, we can take Social Security early. And since we don't know what will happen in the future, if we happen to go through a bear market like this one on the left side, we put much less stress on the portfolio withdrawals. And so, guys, the point of this is not that you should say, hey, Cody just said I should only take Social Security early. That's not the case. Everybody's a little bit different. Remember the person that, let's say has a wife or a husband whose benefit is very small. Maybe they're 10 years younger than their spouse. It's going to make sense for the older, higher earning spouse to delay till 70, particularly so that they can increase the spouse's survivor benefits. Guys, everybody deserves a custom, holistic, comprehensive retirement plan. Don't take this as cookie cutter advice. I just want to start getting your mind into a place where you can say, you know what, maybe there's more than one right answer to how I take Social Security and how I build a retirement income plan. So I hope this helped you. As a reminder, you can find in the link or in the description below a link. It'll take you to our website. If you have questions, if you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, click that link, schedule an appointment. If not, I will see you on the next video, and I hope you found this valuable.